5 minutes. 5 minutes to showtime. 4 minutes. 4 minutes to showtime.
Despite Republican resistance, Democratic Senator Bernie Sanders applauds House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for pushing that bill.
Pelosi, at least like Republican leadership, said, you know what? We have terrible suffering in this country. We need to get money out to the cities and towns, hospitals. We need to protect working people. And I would hope that the Republicans wake up and understand the severity of this and the suffering.
Sanders on ABC's This Week. As many states begin to reopen their businesses, Dr. Tom Inglesby of Johns Hopkins warns against doing it too quickly.
This is a longer-term process, and we're all in together, and our actions are going to matter. I think, you know, the models in this country, the leading models predict that there may be as many as 110,000 people who have died by this disease a month from now. Those are models. It's possible for us to do better than models. It's also possible for us to do worse, depending on what people decide to do, their own actions.
Dr. Inglesby on NBC's Meet the Press. He continues to advise strict social distancing practices. Although many states are allowing beaches to reopen in time for the Memorial Day weekend, New York City is not. Mayor Bill de Blasio says it's too soon for the Big Apple. America is listening to Fox News.
When running a business, HR issues can kill you.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
We are TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. The chat room on YouTube is already filling up. Overling 5 has already started things off with a $10 contribution in the top chat. Thank you so much. You are just unbelievable. You people just are amazing. All the money that goes into the chat goes to the funding of the North Pole Inner Earth expedition. Had a quick conference call with a couple of planners. We may, I say may with a small m, maybe planning an Antarctic trip before the Arctic trip to try to build up a little bit more of the momentum with the fan base. We'll see what happens. Depends a lot on what Hollywood does. We have a lot to go over tonight, and at 8:30 I have Candace Whitelight coming on the program. We are going to be discussing the Schumann resonance, the human-Earth symbiosis, and maybe things complex, maybe things all things frequency, all things relative to the resonant frequency of mankind at this time and what each of us can do about it. Should be an interesting conversation. There are lots and lots of authorities out there, so anyone will do, but Candace is a great energetic spirit when it comes to this subject matter. We've had several conversations, so I think you're going to enjoy it. First, let me begin with my Religion of Peace report. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 39 attacks. In these 39 attacks, they killed 226 innocent people. They injured 189 innocent people. They conducted 2 suicide blasts and concentrated their mayhem in just 9 countries. All this from the Religion of Peace. Also, day 24 of the Ramadan Bamathon 2020. There have been 124 attacks of from Islamic terrorists during Ramadan, and there have been 542 people killed. That's a lot. That's all coming to you from the religion of peace. We are live on Truth Frequency Radio Network. We're coming to you live from the America Free Radio Studios in an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. And we are also live on YouTube. So all you have to do is go to my YouTube channel, Brooks Agnew. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to turn that little notification bell on so when we go live on Wednesday, you will get a notification and not miss a moment of the live broadcast. Also, because it's Sunday night and because we're at Truth Frequency Radio Studio or network tonight, you can call in live. I will leave the numbers up there on the screen. You can call in at 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. And you can call in and we'll take your calls at the top and bottom of the hour. I may check in between just to see if you're hanging out in there, but happy to have you on the program. Chat room is full of people. Festus is there. Alan, Piper, Danny, Moverling 5. I told you already gave $10 tonight to get things started. Alan is there. Rob is there. Thank you so much. Oh, don't forget to breathe. There's no breathing in radio. Come on. You just let the words come out. Very good. Very good. All right, let's begin. I want to talk a little bit about the DNC crime gang. This is going to be coming out in the next few days. Now, you may have forgotten this. I'm going to compress this history a little bit, bring you up to speed. Hey, Zaid, good to see you out there. It's been a while. I'm glad you're there. Let me check my Skype chat for some reason. You just check my board here and see if I have anything that would cause an echo. Nothing to cause an echo that I know of. Turn my sound down a little bit. Double Dog sees your $10 and raise you 10 more. Said, I've been researching hematite stones. I have one right here, as a matter of fact. Turns out they automatically connect us to our higher selves as long as they can go at least 1 week without getting too warm or sweaty or fondled. Okay. I'll try not to do that during the program, but this is mine. It sits on my desk right here. Keeps my paper clips from escaping the little container I put the stone in. And in the chat room, just let me know if the sound is okay. Some people are listening via TFR, and some people are listening via YouTube. So just let me know on the sound. I'm doing the best that I can. The DNC crime gang. Wow, Double Dog, another $5. Do you know if anyone has looked at how the attractive and repulsive forces from the Casimir effect would affect the interiors of planets? Probably not, because the Casimir effect is an effect that takes place in a very, very close place between two very finely machined metal plates. What they'll do is they'll put a charge on the plates and then put the plates in a vacuum to pull all the molecules out of the container. And then mysteriously, in between those charged plates, particles pop into our dimension. That's the Casimir effect. We don't really know where the particles come from, but they do appear. So I don't know that would happen on the interior of the planet. That's a good question, though. Might make a good hypothesis. TFR says the sound is good, so we'll keep going. Yeah, I don't think my microphone from the camera is interfering, but just for giggles, because Skype has been doing some weird things since the last connection. All right, I'm gonna just turn that off. Let's see, no, not do that. Back to this. We turn the microphone off on the camera. It's using a default. Let's try this. I think that'll probably get rid of the echo. What do you think? It sound a lot. Type just automatic. We don't know why. Anyway, we've got that fixed. That's one of the wonders. The DNC crime gang. You have to remember a man named Imran Awan. Okay, he was born in Pakistan in 1980. He won a green card for himself and his family in the green card lottery when he was 14. That's kind of suspect too, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. After immigrating to the U.S. in 1997, Awan worked at a fast food restaurant while attending community college. Then he transferred to Johns Hopkins University, where he earned a degree in information technology, became a U.S. citizen in 2004, resided in Lorton, Virginia. Now, he started working on Capitol Hill in January of 2004 as an information technology director for Robert Wexler. Yes, Robert Wexler. His wife, Hina Alvey, his two brothers, his sister-in-law, and two friends also worked as congressional information technology staffers, although they did not have the skill set. They were just hanging out. They were just part of the chain migration. Awan worked as a shared employee, providing technical support for 25 other House Democrats. Now, you have to understand, it's Robert Wexler from Florida, the congressman from Florida, that brought Imran Awan in. It is, I'm sure, going to come out in some documents that are to be disclosed in the near future that show that Robert Wexler was instrumental in getting Imran Awan and his family here in the first place. So they didn't actually win the lottery. They sort of knew somebody on the inside of the lottery. Now, Wexler worked in the Florida Senate from 1990 to 1996, and then he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1996, which is the second term of Bill Clinton. He filled an open seat vacated by fellow Democrat Harry Johnston. He has been reelected 5 times, never facing serious opposition in one of the most Democratic districts in Florida. Very safe district. Now, on January 3rd, 2010, during the Obama administration, he resigned. He resigned suddenly. And I'll give you a little bit light on that in a minute. But he became the executive director of the Center for Middle East Peace and Economic Cooperation. That is a Washington-based think tank. Now, I don't know if you know what a think tank is, but it's usually funded by a small handful of philanthropists who have a specific political agenda. Now, think tanks do a lot of things. First, they can advise, they can create papers, they do studies, they're usually multilingual or have contacts in foreign countries, and they bring information back so the congressman can make informed decisions. I'm not saying all think tanks are bad, but since 2010, what they began doing is crafting legislation. They actually write legislation in the think tank. I know, you watched Sesame Street and you think that bills are written in Congress. Well, that's what the founding fathers thought too. But now bills are written in think tanks with specific political agendas by teams of experts with supercomputers. They pull lots of information and craft these bills into huge multi-thousand page documents. The Speaker of the House doesn't read them. Congress, they don't read them either. The think tank delivers the bill or delivers the proposed bill to the Speaker. The Speaker gives a few hours up to a few days for Congress to review the bill. No debate, no amendments, no nothing. It passes because the Speaker says so, and that's it. It becomes goes on to the next step, which is the Senate. Now, oftentimes these die in the Senate. They go into committee, they never come out, they never go into committee. They just sit there in limbo. Depends on who the majority leader is. It depends on what kind of majority the other party has, the opposing party to the party that the think tank belongs to. But sometimes those things do come out. They do go to committee. They go to some light debate in the Senate. And they pass in the Senate. But if they've made any alterations or added any amendments to it, guess where it goes? No. It doesn't go to the president. It goes back to Congress. It goes back in committee. And it's sort of a tennis match, back and forth, back and forth. Now, here's what happens. There aren't amendments to get rid of, big pork barrel things. Those kinds of things stay in. What these big bills, they're called omnibus bills. They're huge behemoth bills worth billions, sometimes trillions of dollars, is they hold the country hostage. That's what they do. They hold the country hostage for things that we really need, like a military, like, government services open, like Social Security. They just hold it up. They put it on the face of the bill. And then in the body of the bill, they hide all these things, these time bombs, these booby traps that come, maybe they kick in days or months or sometimes years later, in phases even. And subsequent Congresses, because Congress changes out every 2 years, subsequent Congress, they don't have a clue what's coming because no one in Congress has read that 2,000-page bill or sometimes 1,500-page bill. The budget that Nancy Pelosi just submitted was 1,800 pages. Nobody read it. And I guarantee you there's 2,500 line items in there, none of which the president can individually do anything about. So modern think tanks begin as a phenomenon, and they began as a phenomenon in the House of Representatives, and they really came to fruition in the 20th century. But the 21st century is where they are really becoming dangerous, okay? During the Cold War, many more American and Western think tanks were established, but they did Cold War posturing, they deciphered codes, they interpreted speeches and things like that foreign diplomats would make, but they became much more powerful then. It became a tool that Washington cannot do without. So in July of 2017, right before Trump was elected, Imran Awan was arrested on federal bank fraud charges. Now, I have to tell you how these bank fraud charges came about. During an 18-month investigation into alleged misconduct involving congressional computer equipment, he was subject to conspiracy theories involving espionage. Yes, and on July 3rd, 2018, federal prosecutors concluded their investigation, publicly debunking allegations that Awan was a Pakistani operative who stole government secrets with cover from House Democrats. Yes and no. You see, what was really going on is that Wexler, who now heads up this think tank for Middle East peace, he brought Awan in, and Awan didn't work with just 25 Democrats after he got his citizenship. No. He worked with 80 Democrats. 80 Democrats. All of their laptops, all their pads, all their PDAs, all their phones, all their email accounts, everything was managed by Imran Awan. Now, the interesting thing about this is Imran Awan accessed those accounts multiple times because he had his own password. He had his own password into those 80 accounts. All of those files, all of those documents, all the emails, all the phone calls, all the texts, everything, he had access to it all. And he had a real estate business and he had a car sales business. Real estate and car sales are notorious money laundering instruments. This is where money is moved illegally around the country using houses and investment property and also using cars. And that's exactly what they were doing. His relatives were doing the car sales. Of course, all the businesses were actually losing money, but they were all moving money. And at the last, what happened was he got most of his family members out of the country while things were kind of quiet and the smoke really wasn't leaking out from underneath the doors there over at the Rayburn building. And Imran decided to escape himself. So what did he do? He went out and took a second mortgage out on a home that he owned about $165,000 worth, which you're supposed to use that money for, whatever you said you were going to get the loan for. I'm going to remodel the house. I'm going to add a pool. I'm going to, fix it up and sell it. I'm going to flip it. Lots of people do that, pull a second mortgage out of a piece of property and use that money to do it. But that's not what he did. What he did is he wired that money to Pakistan. He wired the money to Pakistan. It wasn't the first time he sent a bunch of money to Pakistan. You know what he was doing? He was padding himself. He was making for himself an escape route. This was his getaway money. He was never going to pay that second mortgage back. So, because they could not get him for the espionage that he was conducting under the auspices of the Congress, because Congress refused to turn him in. Remember that Debbie Wasserman Schultz was managing Mr. Awan, and she came under heavy scrutiny about his activities and what he was doing, and she refused to fire him. Even after he was indicted, she refused to fire him. Yeah, I know, you got to think about that as well. But here's the deal. After he was fired, he needed to get out of the country. Nobody wanted this guy caught. He knew too much. But he did get caught, not for the espionage, for bank fraud. That's how they got him. At the airport. They arrested him at the airport. Just to let you know. He had unauthorized access to classified government data that he has provided to the Pakistani government, and he's leaked some of that information. This included, but was not limited to, the hacking of the Democrat National Committee server in 2015 and 2016, which was blamed on the Russians. Wasn't them. It was Imran Awan. He had the way in. Let's see. The intelligence community concluded Russia was responsible for the hack. Not likely. It's easy enough to put footprints in there that look like somebody else. Daily Caller called it something straight out of James Bond. And of course, every single Democrat parroted the story, and all of the global media empire did the same thing. So President Donald Trump called for Awan to be investigated for espionage in several posts on Twitter, including one in April of 2018, in which he referred to Awan as the Pakistani mystery man, and another in June of 2018 when he wrote, "Our Justice Department must not let Awan and Debbie Wasserman Schultz off the hook." Trump had been asked if he believed Putin or American intelligence regarding 2016 election interference. The judge who sentenced Awan in the bank fraud case criticized these conspiracy theories, calling them an unbelievable onslaught of scurrilous media attacks to which he and his family have been subjected. Blah, blah, blah. So January of this year, and this is where we're kind of catching up to where we are right now and why I'm bringing it to you, because, as you know, I can give you kind of clues as to what's going to happen in the very near future. In January of this year, Awan and 4 associates filed a lawsuit against Rosiak with the Daily Caller and Regnery Publishing, they're a big book publisher, in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, D.C., alleging defamation against him and unjust enrichment. You're making money off my story. They were enraged that someone actually made money telling the story of the inner workings of corruption of the DNC. More than a dozen CIA agents were exposed and murdered. Billions in taxpayer funding were laundered or misappropriated. Top secret files moving through more than 80 Democrat email, phone accounts were copied to Pakistani addresses. We already know this. Congressman Wexler's departure was timed perfectly to get him out of the dragnet being dropped onto the IT scandal that he personally designed and financed. So now you know where that all is. Look for it to come back in the news in the next few days. At 8:30, we have Candace Whitelight coming on. We're going to be talking about human resonance and human earth symbiosis and other metaphysical science. Michigan State wants to let you know you are being monitored, maybe even if you just visit the state, okay? And this is from Governor Gretchen Whitmer, I'm sorry, it's Half-Wit. No, I'm sorry, Whitmer. That's her last name. Wow, why did I have that in there? Imagine that. Whitlis was first asked about what proof she has that protesters had spread the virus around the state after previous demonstrations. Quote, I saw one report. I don't have proof. I'm not following everybody home and taking their temperature and watching them for 2 weeks, she said. Whitlis claimed to see a lot of activists touching each other at all the protests. Made her angry. She said a group analyzed cell phone data and concluded that it translates to where we're seeing hotspots in rural parts of Michigan. I don't know the group. I've not vetted the data. I can't vouch for it, she admitted. Whitlis was then asked if she wants to see the Michigan State Police ticket protesters who are violating social distancing orders. I quote, I think the Michigan State Police is monitoring all of the conversations around this event, that they are prepared and are working with the Attorney General, close quote. She said they are prepared to ticket protesters if there's reason to do it. I'm hopeful that they don't have reason to, said Governor Whitlis. Well, I just wanted to let you know that if you upgrade your phone, and if you have this phone, if you have an iPhone, you've already got the notice today to upgrade to version, what is it? Version 13 something. Hang on a second. There's like so many. I get them all the time. Hold on. I'll pose down here. Here we go. Software update, checking for update. It's 13.4.1. Introduces new emoji stickers and iCloud Drive folder sharing from the Files app. The updates also contains bug fixes and you learn more. Now, don't install it just yet. And I'm telling you why I'm asking people to stall your install of this, because trace tracking. They're going to be trace tracking using this update. In other words, if someone close to your phone ends up reporting that they have the virus, your phone is going to be tracked. So don't download the upload. Don't download the update. Just wait. Maybe we can wait them out and they'll go to 4.2. All right. Take a break. We'll be right back in a couple minutes with Candace Whitelight. Pause while I dial her up. Listen to the commercials. We'll be right back. YouTubers, just hang out. I'll go to the break screen, turn the sound down. Just go get a beverage and come back, and we'll carry on. See you right after the break.
Discover the extraordinary powers of intuitive healing with transmutation.
Good evening. Am I connected?
I had my sound turned down. Yes, we're connected. I can hear you fine.
Oh, great. You're a little bit gruff, but I would guess that will go away, eh? So.
Yeah, it'll go away. It'll go away. Sound tends to even itself out. Sometimes it's a little scratchy through the mixer, but it'll even itself out. So the commercials are running right now for about 2 minutes. I have some of the graphics that you sent me. I have set up on a guest screen. It looks pretty cool. I managed to get those animated GIFs working, so they'll look good on YouTube.
Wow. Excellent. And I put just a note on there that says people should go to my Frequency of the Earth, group page, because I just posted 4 graphs that I just took off of the Schumann. So I can use those as far as, if people can access that, which most
what's the
people are
website?
Facebook savvy.
What is the website?
It's Frequency of the Earth. Frequency of the Earth.
That singular or frequencies of the Earth?
No, Frequency. FREQUENCY. It's the same one that you posted on when you put the YouTube link.
Oh, okay.
I just
can add
posted
that
on that again, so yeah.
I got 1 minute. I can add that.
I got to take a deep breath here. This is always so exciting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I've done it before 1,000 times with when I was doing reporting, but this is going to be a good audience. I got a lot of folks coming in that have been waiting for me to kind of get with somebody that would allow me to explain some of these basics, and then also kind of go forward to the the biometrics and the fact that we're able to use the human as a means to get to a higher consciousness, which just has appealed.
Yeah. Hold on. I got to bring the studio back in. Just hold your thought.
Yep.
You are now tuned into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We are live on Truth Frequency Radio Network, coming to you through the America Free Radio studios. This is the voice of the revolution. And we are also live on YouTube. So if you want to go to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/Brooks Agnew, you can watch us live. This is a live call-in program. So you can call in at 213-233-3998. I will do my best to monitor the call boards and the chat on YouTube. My guest right now is Candace Whitelight. She is an expert in her own right. She has a website, Truth Frequency. Frequency of the Earth, frequency singular of the earth.com. Some of the Schumann resonance readings that are fresh, hot off the presses, are on there right now. If you just want to cruise over there during the interview, you can keep up to date on that. So welcome to the program, Candace. How are you?
I'm good, Brooks. Really good to be here and to be able to discuss my passion, which has really consolidated recently, and I've got a good crowd. And the actual, it's not a website, it's a Facebook group. So you need to go on to Facebook and then just put in the title line, Frequency of the Earth, and you'll get to the group page. And it's all public. You don't have to join. So you'll be able to see everything.
Excellent. So we hear a lot about the Schumann resonance. Tell us when it was discovered. I know we were sending astronauts to the moon once they got out in space and it was all quiet in that aluminum can. Major Tom was out there twiddling his thumbs, and all of a sudden he didn't feel so good. What is the Schumann resonance? How did we discover it?
Well, the Schumann was something that was developed back in the early days in the 40s by an individual named Winifred Otto Schumann. And he basically was in Germany, and he created a set of instruments that could pick up a very, very low resonance frequency. And it was not really known what it was all about until he had worked on it for many years and was able to start to capture it on old technological equipment. Winifred Otto Schumann was born in May 20th, 1888, and he then came to the United States from Germany, and he was here, in the 20s, and basically worked at the Technical University of Stuttgart while I was still in Germany. And then he was brought to America under Operation Paperclip. So he was here from 47 to 48, and he worked at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. And then, his research was very widely shared among technology that was interested in the, of course, radar technology, which is really what they developed during those years that was used in a very wide way during the war effort. And of course, you know about Operation Paperclip. So he did continue working until he retired at the age of 73, and he died then in 74 in Munich. So I really have to say I'm very pleased that one of the people that is a part of my group in Frequency of the Earth is actually a fourth grandson of Winifred Otto Schumann, and his name is Obi. And he actually and I have gotten to be very fond of each other and to talk on a regular basis. And he's got a very interesting story, but he's actually a direct descendant.
Wow, that's really great. So the Schumann resonance, now this is a resonant frequency of the planet itself. Where do they measure this? What instruments do they use, and how do they pick the frequency up?
Well, it's done with spectrograms, much like you pick up any sort of frequency application. They have places all over the planet where they actually gather this information in, and it's called a world database. And I'll put a picture up of it, which I have placed on there several times, but I'll put one up currently. They are of different configurations, and they have quite a few here in this country, but they're primarily in Europe. And then all the information is collated and gathered in Tomsk, Russia, which is central to Russia. And it is actually on the opposite side of the planet than we are, so that when they get the information, they post it real time on the graphs. And then it is, of course, if you want to go back in time and look at it, you have to gather that information through a time date exchange service to find out what time it is in your neck of the woods. So, there's people all over the world that are a part of Frequency of the Earth, and that's one thing that I'm really, really proud of, is that I've got actual Russians in there and people from Australia and Africa, South America. This is really amazing information, and it does resonate to a lot of people.
Well, somebody asked, is the frequency the same all over the planet, or is this an average frequency? Is there a spectrum that goes around the planet? It goes up and down. How often does it vary?
Well, they take the readings every 15 minutes, and then they collate them every hour. And it is different all over the planet. We're going to get different readings in divergent places because of various ground phenomena, but basically what we are doing is we're tracking the ionosphere, which is a portion of the atmosphere that's above our heads that, is quite extensive, and it is where all of our radio waves bounce around. So, when you're talking radio waves and frequency that we can actually hear, you're up into the hundreds and thousands of hertz rate or cycles per second. But the Schumann is something that they have collated that that really is responding far more profoundly to the actual iron core. It's a electromagnetic frequency. And so, you know, you think of the Earth as being surrounded with an electromagnetic field that is what our protection is from, you know, high energy particulate, resonance that comes in from the sun primarily, but all places in the galaxy actually. And it is collated in terms of when it comes in, it hits the field and then it is brought to the poles. It's magnetic. So that's why we get the phenomenon known as the aurora, because then it breaks out into its light spectrum, which of course is again in the thousands of hertz. And then we have, some rays that come through that are UVA, UVB, and the whole spectrum. So with the actual human, we're only really cataloging between 1 hertz and then upwards. On the main chart, it only goes to 40. Now, the one thing that I have done is I've broken this down and I do analysis on 4 different charts. So they all go within the range, though, from 100 from that baseline, which is like 1 hertz, up into the about 200 hertz, which is in where we can hear it. But most of the resonance occurs in particular brainwave states at a much lower frequency that we can't even hear. So
now, this kind of breaks into a subject which I call Earth-human symbiosis. We've speculated about it for a long time, but, Earth is kind of a noisy place when it comes to humans. We stomp around. We have airplanes landing. We have trains hooking up. We have big presses and machines running all the time, and buses and trucks and everything going down the freeway. Interesting thing, though, during Operation Corona Scare, at the height of it, when everything was shut down, I mean, very little was moving. I kind of enjoyed the Corona traffic myself because it just took me way less time to get to work in the morning. But the planet itself, because we now have very sensitive instruments all over the world measuring the vibrations of the Earth, not just seismographs, but more sensitive than that even. The activity of mankind dropped down very quiet. And all of a sudden, what was left behind was the natural vibration of the planet itself. First time really it's ever been measured. So now it confirms the assertion that we've had for a long time that the vibrations and noise of man has a resonance with the vibration of the Earth. And there's a symbiosis or a dissonance between the two. I guess when they're in harmony, things go well for man. But when they become dissonant, things do not go well for man. What are your ideas about that, about mankind and the activities of mankind having a symbiosis with the planet itself?
I think that's really completely valid because with the Schumann, we have discovered how profound it is actually that we are so sensitive to these low frequencies that we can be not only affected within our emotions, but the way that our physical symptoms work, the way that our brains work, which is pretty amazing to me. We all do function within our own capacity, though, to actually be able to affect these things, which is, we all say, things are coming at us, that the noise is coming at us, that we have, these markers that we live in, that we have to maintain our sanity amongst everything from the fluorescent green lights to the pollution, the noise pollution and the white noise that we all are a part of. I think that's probably something that everybody can certainly agree on, is that, more of that is not good. And that, you look at what people have to put up with in a city. I live in a very small town in the country, and I can walk out and it's quiet. And, I feel sort of like better here because I can really use my senses, and, I can feel things and I can perceive things easier. We have a tendency to shut down as bioorganisms when we are so impressed from the outside with noise and with sight and with sound, and it overwhelms us. I don't think that we as a species have really been able to fully adapt to not only the physical phenomena, but also the psychological phenomena that they're pushing at us with these, what I would consider, bioweapons that they have used. And, you look at the frequency of the cell phone towers and the 3G and 4G that are part of our world, and HARP, all of this is tremendously disruptive. And is there any wonder that we react?
Yeah, you can kind of see it when you go to the big cities. You go to New York, Chicago, Boston, and you get downtown where there are a lot of people. And of course, coming from more rural areas, we're more observant. We look around, we're looking at signs, we're looking at people. They don't look at people. They don't look at you. They tune all of the machine world out, and they close down into this little like endospore as they go in their masses, down the sidewalk. They don't interact with you. They wouldn't even say hi to you because they probably wouldn't hear you. But one thing we do hear sometimes in the countryside is we hear sounds. Like you mentioned that some of these resonances can get up to 200 hertz. That's in the audible range. Some people report hearing sounds like, Rob says in the chat room, trumpet sounds or strange kind of, whining sounds. No distinct place that they come from, and the places that they're being reported in are very rural. There are no trains, there are no big cranes or machines or anything operating. These are just sounds that seem to come from the sky or from the earth itself. You can't really, turn your face toward it and say, oh, it's coming from there over that horizon. It's just an audible sound. And I've even seen phone recordings when these sounds repeat themselves. They'll turn their phone on and look around, and some of these sounds are quite eerie. What do you make of that?
Well, Earth is kind of a noisy place if you think about it, from that viewpoint, where there's even, this surreal, ethereal sort of noise that gets vibrated about. And that's one thing that the Schumann has worked for years on, and actually is just really coming into its own in terms of a blocking method that they have in order to eliminate what you would consider exterior type of noise. Now, that doesn't mean that these noises are not coming from the earth, because if they're audible and we as a species can pick up on this, that, there's validity to that, and that, there's a lot of motion that's going on, and we're talking about everything from running water to the grinding of rocks beneath our feet. And it also includes kind of a human factor that I believe is, technologically that they have brought about through experimentation, that I think we are kind of in that process right now where we're like a big experiment, and they want to see if they can control us. I know this in a very real way because I've been traveling all over the country and trying to align the grid and, visiting megalith sites where we have vortex points. And I'll tell you, you can hear that stuff. There's been antenna that has been set up all over the place, and it's not necessarily, contemporary man's work.
Interesting. I know when I go travel around the world myself, go to places like Egypt or go to Tibet, there's not very much industry in Tibet. It is very quiet. You get out of the city of Lhasa out into the mountains, and it's extremely quiet. The only thing you can hear is the wind. There aren't even any trees or grass in those altitudes. You're talking 14, 16, 18,000 feet. It's way up there. But it is amazing the peace and the power there is in that part of the world. People call that the root chakra of the world, the Himalayas. It's a remarkable place, and people don't get there much anymore unless you go up from the Nepal side, but not on the Tibet side.
Yeah. They had some really bad earthquakes there back in, 2011 2011, and I mean, it leveled the place, and ever since then they have not brought back the tourist industry, and that's been kind of was the mainstay of all the Sherpas that took people up there. But it's really the case is, and in studying the Schumann, breaking it down as far as brainwave states, I'll start with the highest one, which is really the one of the monks and the folks that have gone into the mountains and meditated, and it's up there in what they call gamma brainwave state, and that's above about 35 hertz. That goes all the way up to 200, and we see quite often on the Schumann these events that we call Schumann spikes.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go to one of the resonance charts, you can actually look at one I just put up, which is just current. It just happened today. It says on the timestamp right at the top, it'll say the date 17/05/2020. And so that's right underneath that is 12, which is the hour on the bottom of the chart. And then if you go down to the right to 19, you'll see this big white patch that's sitting right over the between it. And that particular spike occurred at our time, about 7, it would be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's Montana time. So, but it would be read by the fact that you look at it, the hertz rate is on the left side, and it says the little EU, which is the hertz rate sign, and then it says 004812. So that as it goes up in hertz rate, it goes down the chart. So you look at this and you say, gee, that's impressive. So the next chart that I look at to determine that, which is where I determine if it is in gamma brainwave state, and that's on the amplitude chart or graph. And it has 4 different measurements on it. One of them is A1, which is your first resonance. It's the first harmonic, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And in this particular spike, you can see the spike going up to 67 hertz.
Wow.
So that's well within that's the power. Yeah.
Yeah, that's where our wall sockets
side.
are. Wall sockets in our house are 60 hertz.
Are 60 hertz, exactly.
Right.
So this is feelable. It's something that you can feel. It's also something that a lot of people have some really interesting symptoms when it happens like this. And this is what's been really interesting about having this site, which I've had since last September, is that I'll put this up and I'll do an analysis of it saying, this is where this is and this is what it relates to, and then I'll have people come on and just say they've had a headache all day long,
Yeah.
or that they felt like they have been under, stress or pressure or whatever. And so we'll talk about it in terms of how this happens. And then lately I've actually been analyzing it on another graph, which again I put up, and the way to read the rest of this amplitude graph is to go to the second wave, which is up to 36 hertz, which is again in gamma. And then it goes down to a red one, which is A3, or your third harmonic of your amplitude. And it is, right now it says it's in 22 hertz, which is lower. That's more the beta brainwave state. And then on the green wave, which is the lowest one, A4, it goes up to 17. So both of those are in what you call the beta, which is the state that we're most often in. And that's our working state where we can have tasks that we can take at hand, where we have good focus. But it's also the wave state that we are in with our brains most of the time. So in that particular wavelength is where our brains are tasked with doing all these menial chores, And it's also where we get the most amount of stress. It's a very stressful state. It's something that you don't have a lot of control over, something that your emotional constraint is not tied in to your heart-brain resonance very well. And you think about that in terms of not being able to hear it, but being able to feel it. And so that particular chakra, if you will, that is affected is our throats. So if we think of that as a state of mind that we are using in terms of our intonation, which are our voices, that ends up being a direct connection to one of the more difficult periods of time in everybody's life is when they are actually trying to get out of that state and go into a higher state of consciousness, which is more like gamma. So there's a range there that's very important to understand in terms of an analysis so that we can say, yes, that we are being affected by something that's just numbers on a graph. Because it is the resonance, it's the basic process that we can now track, much like we do with the brain, where we put the little electrodes all over our skull, and we can say, you are functioning at this brain wavelength, or that, that you have brain damage and you don't work as high as hertz rate as somebody whose brain's functioning well. They've also done testing, which I really love this story. They brought some Tibetan monks in to a laboratory and put the little, the mode on all their skulls so they could get the wavelengths. And then they told them to go ahead and to meditate. So they had their encephalograms all set up, and they did the testing, and they had the scientists in the white lab coats. And the folks ended up, noticing overall with many days of testing and these same monks coming back and doing it over and over again.
And it was repeatable and reliable.
That's right. It was scientifically repeatable.
Wow.
And, their experience with that, they laughed about, of course. They thought that was pretty funny. And then they told the story that was passed down to me because I have, I've taken martial arts, and I have many years of Shaolin Kung Fu that I did. So it's a part of our history that we are tied in with China, with Tibet, and of course the monks that learned to do all of these things, which they
Candace, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break. We've got commercials coming up, and we'll be back at the top of the hour. More Candace Whitelight. Don't go away. We'll be right back after these messages. More X Squared Radio. Okay, we took the studio out, so just you and me. We can talk with the YouTubers now for about 2 minutes, 59 seconds, and then we'll be back on the Truth Frequency Radio Network while they run their commercials with their listeners. So it's just you and me. I'm really particularly interested in this because some people have mastered that ability to meditate and to reach those different bands of frequencies you were talking about, the gamma, the delta, the theta, even the alpha brain waves. They've mastered the ability to put their human energy in that range. And individually, I think it's magnificent. But if we could get a large number of people to do that at the same time, doesn't that create more amplitude in that frequency range? And doesn't that have a symbiotic reaction with the Earth itself? Like say the Native Americans would do a rain dance and they'd put themselves in kind of a rain mindset, and then the earth would respond with rain. I'm just saying there's more to it than just magic. This is a reliable and repeatable brainwave pattern that can be achieved and measured with external instruments or even with electrodes on the head. But when you put a bunch of people together in that same mind frequency, it can have a cumulative effect, does it not?
Well, this is the whole point of doing this, really, Brooks. I mean, I really enjoy the thought that we as a species will come together in our resonance so that we can all achieve, a measure of peace. And the most peaceful brainwave state is alpha, and that's what I really want to get to. Is and it's funny because I've been talking about this for a long time as being what's called the flow state. And the flow state is something that everybody has experience with, but they don't utilize it in terms of being able to control it. A lot of people can't really get into meditation, and I understand there's so much white noise and so many distractions. I mean, to really do what the rest of my story about the monks is they go up on the glaciers and they actually wear their robes that have been completely soaked with water, and they'll go up and sit on the glaciers, and it's, all of maybe 2 degrees out, and they literally will be able to produce the heat to dry their robes so that they can go into that meditative state, and they're so capable of doing this that they can create heat. So that's the example for gamma. Now, if I try to talk to you about
Hold that thought.
The lower one.
Hold
which
that thought.
We'll get to. So
we're going to bring the studio back in now.
Frequency Radio.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. Welcome back to X Squared Radio. It's coming to you live from the America Free Radio Studios on the Truth Frequency Radio Network, and we're also YouTube Live at this moment. If you want to call in live, the number is 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. I will do my best to monitor the call boards. Last half hour, Candace Whitelight is our guest. We're talking about measuring the Schumann resonance of the Earth. Evidently, it's been done since the 40s, very, very well in recent times, because we're doing colorized spectroscopy of this frequency. It's being shared on numerous websites. And by the way, Candace's Facebook group is Frequency of the Earth. Frequency of the Earth. You should join that group. It's a big group. And then we talked about measuring the different wavelength bands that humans can put off, going all the way down to alpha, which is the most peaceful, and gamma, very active, and all of the mundane things that we do throughout the day, whether we're driving a car, working around the house, or something that doesn't require a lot of brain power. Our mind can drift off into a peaceful place while we're doing hard work. And I talk a little bit about that in my philosophy stuff, but that's beside the point. The point that I'm trying to make is that now we have these two frequency sets. We have the human set and we have the Earth set. And we talked about how there's a symbiosis between the two. Mankind is comfortable on the Earth because we belong here. We belong in this frequency set. The Earth relies on the frequency of humankind to react. It could be why, if you recall back in the scriptures, when God brings Eve to Adam, and Adam is overjoyed, and God asks him, "So, what will you call the woman?" He says, "Eve." And God said, "Why will you call her Eve?" And Adam says, "Because she is the mother of all living." And God responded affirmatively. He said, "That's right, because she is the mother of all living." Now, we've always thought that humans were made up of the DNA of all the living things on the earth. But it's, we're genetically or biologically, at least from a molecular standpoint, not all that much different, than a cabbage. It could be that our DNA was used to craft all the life that's on this planet. One, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. An engineered protein is an engineered protein. So when we're talking about this Earth and we compare it to other planets, which we looked at, up to 1,000 light years away in detail, we don't see the kind of life that there is here on this planet. There's no spontaneous, millions of species of life that are living in some balance or struggle along with mankind. That just doesn't exist on any other world. And I asked the question one time, what do you think the Earth would be like if man wasn't here? If man was never brought to the Earth, what would the Earth be like? And of course, the immediate response was, well, the Earth would be a paradise. All the animals would live in balance, and, it would all be a great ecology just working together. I said, actually, that's not true. The Earth would probably be a cold, dead rock in space, because we're the ones that take care of the Earth. We're the ones that put out the forest fires. We're the ones that clean up the mess, that take the death and decay and out of the way. We're the ones that manage and groom and care for this planet. This planet is beautiful because we are here. There's more standing timber in the United States right now than there was at the signing of the Constitution, because we put the forest fires out. We manage. That's why we have tree-lined streets, because we manage the forests. We like to live in the nature. Other places around the planet are not that way, but it's because they haven't had the freedom to do it. It's been consumed by their people. I think it boils down to this Earth-human symbiosis. When we work with the Earth, when we're able to reach those frequencies that are constructively interfering with the planet itself, the planet yields its bounty to us. When we are in a frequency of mind and spirit that is counter to the resonance of the Earth will react with an allergic reaction. It will have a drought. It will have an earthquake. It will have a high winds or a volcano or some kind of calamity that knocks that species down again. I'm just saying, people that are in that mindset, they don't prosper on this planet. People that live in harmony with the planet do prosper. Am I off base here, Candace, or am I talking along the right mindset here?
Well, it's all God. I think that we can say God and frequency basically work together to create everything. So we're a part of that circuit. There's no doubt that it's our individual abilities to function within this atmosphere, within this ionosphere, that basically has created all things. So it's symbiosis, right? One wouldn't exist without the other. We are all scientists, whether we know it or not, because we all have, 23 dual strands of DNA. And one of my things that I have actually found out on the Schumann is that we've gone through these DNA upgrades, and it actually showed up on the Schumann.
Really?
And it kind of was, yeah. I mean, I've got pictures, and I'll post some on Frequency of the Earth, that it just is amazing. They look like little barcodes. And when I first looked at it, I kind of asked, God, I said, what am I looking at here? And he, said, well, it looks like a DNA upgrade to me. So I went with it. Coincidentally, they happened at the 8-hour and at the 13-hour regularly. And it was like over a course of about the last 6 months that we had 7 upgrades. And they happened in sequence, every 18 days. And then what I came up with over that period of time was the phenomena that I believe is part of what we are now undergoing in terms of actually building the rest of our DNA coding. There's been this supposition for a long time that we have all these codons that are actually not useful. They have called them every name in the book, but they just say they're not encoded with anything. So I do believe that's changing. I believe there's a lot of us that have felt that, and that has been a part of what the Schumann is now really showing us, is that has to do with frequency. That has to do with what you are in the space of doing when you are tapping in to these baseline brainwave states, as you are in training yourself to be able to comprehend and to connect with this information.
This brings me to a good question, because it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing. If the Earth is putting off this frequency, and it does it, let's say, independent of the activities of mankind, it does it because of the sun, because of the core of the Earth, because of the ionosphere and the reaction of the galaxy with the solar system, and man can resonate with that frequency, then we prosper. Or is it that the Earth itself responds not only to what I just previously said, but also the average frequency of the society in that area? You say the Schumann resonance varies all over the planet. Does that frequency vary depending upon the society that lives around that sensor?
Well, that's something that I could say it might vary in terms of a micro number. It's like 0 to the 6th, decimal. And that's really the range that we're functioning in right now, although what we're seeing is a general rise in the frequency. And
right.
People that have been tracking this for a while have been aware, and I track it as well. Now I look at it as a part of not only the frequency chart, but also one called the Q factors, that is the subtle waves. And there's a slight difference, and there's a lot of different formats out there in terms of gathering and collating this information. But that's what I'm saying, that they really are honing in now on more of a capture that is able to then state unequivocally that this is where the actual Hertz rate of the Earth is, this is what our effect on it is, this is what the effect on us is. It's a three-way circuit, and what we're really surrounded with right now is 60 hertz, which is in every wall of every house and all the wires that are going across, and so we are actually becoming more sensitive to it by our abilities within ourselves to then have the perception that has to be built within this model.
I see.
To be able to receive it ourselves, which is really about changing our own vessels. You see, this is what God gave us, is they gave us a body that we have to function with, that has a capacity for processing food and thinking and having nerves and meridian lines and everything else that is a constant concern to people in terms of their health. So if you want to go down that road and talk about it biologically, I think that what we are really doing at this period of time is we're coming into ourselves to understand that we have the ability to do this ourselves.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying in the
rely on that outside of us.
That's what they're saying in the chat room too. Boo says we can recode our DNA. Look at the separated twin experiments, and that really the only difference in the twins is the spirit within those bodies. So they're having an effect on the proteins that the gene pairs can choose. And Rob says we are all gods in our own right. I had the late Kevin Smith told me one time, he wrote a book called Gods in the Garden. Pretty interesting that we are all gods in the garden. We just forgot who we are, and we're not acting, we're not remembering who we are. We're not acting like we should. Interesting that you say that the Schumann resonance is rising. Do you think that's because we've wired the planet and, put out such tremendous amounts of energy at 60 hertz, or do you think it's because humans are making it go up?
I think it's much more of a phenomena that has to do with our measure of our own individual abilities to be conscious. I think this has most everything to do with our direct connection to Source or to God, and then our conscious level of understanding. And of course, we can go off on that and talk psychology all the rest of the night. But in my research, what we've got going on with the Schumann is that we've got graphs we can look at that explain it in a way that is, it's new, and it's a new experience in terms of being able to analyze these things. In fact, I know there's a lot of sites out there that look at the graphs every day and have, a power level or whatever, but I really don't think there's anybody else other than myself and a couple other individuals that really have thought of this as a brainwave state, or in that way about the fact that frequency functions within each one of us, and we do have the capacity within our vocal cords. And you look at the ancient Tibetans, the monks that they did the Om, and the Om is the depth of the Om goes all the way down into your heart, and your heart is very strong, and your heart actually has another little electronic sort of function, and it is the magnetics that are in your heart, which is your blood and the iron that runs throughout your body and your blood system. There's also this connection to the solar plexus that I really like to talk about, because so many people are very weak in the solar plexus, and they have trouble with their digestion and with, all sorts of medicine that they give people. But really what that has to do is to understand that the solar plexus, or the somatic plexus, is actually connected to the brain. It's our fourth brain. And, you talk about gut reactions and things like that. A lot of our emotions are experienced in our stomachs, because, you think about getting into that, sort of state where you got, your butterflies in your stomach, you get nervous. So the control of that area, that's your power grid,
sure,
if you will. And, so again, we're talking about balance, we're talking about cohesion, we're talking about graphs that basically sometimes comes to me in terms of saying, we all need to sort of look at the color yellow for a while here, and get out your, sunflowers and your paint, and get your yellow water glass or whatever, and just, tune your solar plexus up, because the stronger that you can make that. And I personally, being trained in Shaolin, we spend a lot of time with that, because that's next to your liver, and next to your gallbladder, and next to your spleen, and your whole digestive system. And, this is an important part of your body. So, it's not a single thing. It's not just your brain. It's also your heart. It's a tuning of your heart so that it's not depleted. It doesn't become, arrested. I mean, they use all sorts of words that are very clear in terms of what happens to you if you don't take care of these organs that you have. And then you've got your glandular system that I put up some charts, today because I knew I was going to be doing this, and I wanted people to see it in terms of the links in our brain that we have, that we can actually activate and put together that have to do with our pineal gland and our pituitary gland, which is the master gland. So we are a bioorganism that now is undergoing a complete change in terms of heightening that baseline frequency,
sure,
which we talked about 30 years ago. And, this is the truth and everybody knew about it that was in the spiritual community, that the frequency of the earth was going up from baseline 7.83 to it's going to end up at 13 hertz. Now that's the range of flow state. That's what we call alpha brainwave state. Jesus Christ talked about it. I am the alpha and I am the omega. And that's what he was talking about, because meditative state, when you're in alpha, is where you can connect directly to God. And that is no joke. And if I can explain it well enough in the next 5 minutes, somebody ought to give me a grant to do some research. Because
go for it.
This is so huge. Even Q has talked about it. So
we
did
have
a post a little while ago called the flow state.
We have about 7
and when
minutes.
I saw that, I went.
We have about 7 minutes left in this segment, and I want to talk about that, but I also want to talk about the last, 12 weeks or so. The Global Syndicate has unleashed an operation which has driven us 187 countries into a state of almost a state of defeat. We feel like we've been beaten, like we've been conquered. And we're trying our best to come back from it, but each time we do, it looks like the deep state is stepping on us with everything they have. How is that affecting us and our resonance and our frequency settings? How is this affecting the earth and the humans upon it?
Oh, that's a really big subject, but the way I understand it, and I'll put it in a very concise way, this has been the best thing that could ever happen for humanity. And if anybody thinks of this as defeat, that's the wrong road to go down. Let's get into positivity here. Let's think of this as a primary example of what all of us needed to go to the inside of ourselves, to go inward, to understand that we are connected within ourselves, and to pick up these abilities that we can use. And the big one here, and I've got to say it, is the Taurus field. If everybody can understand that, I know there's a lot of crazy going on out there. I get these comments every day, 10 times a day. And it is a situation that I want to, in a very real way, give you a vision that I got last November, which was a lucid dream, but it described it really well. And this is what we can all try to do. Think of the Earth and think of the electromagnetic field that surrounds the Earth. And it's a pretty easy graph to come up with, A couple good sites actually talk about that every day, like Suspicious Observers. And, you can get that information. So you can see that as a visual, and you can know that it exists right down to a single cell. Everything has a torus field around it. It is the movement that creates the energy that creates life. It's conception to the process that our soul uses to leave the body to go to heaven at the end of our life. So this torus field, which you have a great graph on there right now, is it spins, and it also is, you're capable of aligning yourself so that you have your power source, you have your heart, and you have your mind, and you can create that lineally through your body. And then you can think of that as spreading your arms out and doing a little roundabout around your body like a donut. And that particular field that every person has is something that you can create not only for your protection, but you can also use it to change the energy around you. So if you have somebody that's standing over there going crazy, just think calm and peace. Go into that alpha state. Everybody should know how to do that. They've all had a moment where they've been no mind. They've been a part of everything. They release that monkey mind, that chatter, and you are in complete connection at that point in time. You don't have to overthink it. You just have to be. And then once you kind of get into that space and time, you can extend that little torus field around you to almost 6 feet out on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And take that with you everywhere. In other words, you just have it. You're walking around, just see everybody is having their little torus fields. And then you can see the damage that people do to themselves in terms of those torus fields. You start to think of life differently. You start to think of, as the Dalai Lama always said, there goes another sentient being. We all have this capability. We don't have to go into a situation where we're scared of things, where you're having to feel defeated or to feel down about yourself, because you are a living, breathing child of God. And this is not any joke. And that will absolutely, without any doubt, be the state of mind that if we can all maintain that and start to feel and start to think that we are capable of running this planet ourselves and not being controlled by these people that are constantly wanting to suppress us and to
yeah,
and
I always
to make
comment
us
about them and their
less than we are capable of. Yeah, you and I talked about this before. I think this is the big vision that and I can say our very excellent President Trump, he believes this. He's navigating these waters that the Q team is. And really think of that as our cheerleading section, where we can go around the world. And this is in every city of every country. And I think we're really have a process here that I think will be successful.
Yeah, I think so too. You mentioned Q, and that lit up the chat room. There are really a lot of people out there watching Q videos and watching Q analysts out there talk about Q drops and what's going on now with the deep state. When are the arrests going to begin? I mean, that's what they're really concentrating on. But there's more to it than that. There's a hope that goes with it. Yes, we're in the middle of a rebellion. Yes, it's all part of a revolution against the global syndicate. That's what I call them. And I kind of hope that they would just go and get in their bunkers in New Zealand or wherever they have them built, and lock the door and start living off their hoarded food supply and water supply and filtered air, and we'll take it from here. That's just the way I feel. I just feel like Q has really tapped into the human spirit and the oneness of America. And even more than that, it's a global thing. When you hear people say, where we go one, we go all, in all these different languages, all these different countries around the world, it's powerful. There's a solidarity for the human race. We're going to take a quick break. Hang around, would you, Candace, for maybe part of another segment?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio right after this.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again. So I place another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. My name is Brooks Agnew, and I am your host on X Squared Radio every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the past meets the future. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We will dissolve the propaganda of dangerous people with dangerous plans for the planet. We will discuss the latest technologies and challenges for humankind. We will discover the safest place for you to stand when the thinkings and doings of mankind come flying apart, and how you can be one of the people that helps put it back together. Join us.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
All right. Welcome back. We're halfway through America Free Radio tonight, coming to you from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the truth freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly. You should follow me on social media. It's all Brooks Agnew everywhere. Doing so will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. Please do that. My guest tonight, Candace Whitelight, we are talking about lots of things, as human resonance, about human-earth symbiosis, and recently we broached onto the subject of Q, and that really lit up the chat room. So lots of questions flying around out there. I do have a caller holding right now. Candace, you ready for some questions live?
Absolutely.
All right, let's bring our first caller on. Welcome to the program. What is on your mind?
Hi, Brooks. Okay, I just got one question, and I think Neil in the chat room was the one who brought it up first, but it was so good, and I really want to hear what Candace has to say about it. You know the social distancing that they're trying to employ right now? We have to stay 6 feet apart. I just want to know what Candace thinks about that and if it makes a difference. And I'll hang up now. Now, you guys in the chat room, you got to call in.
All right. So there's your question. So the deep state has not really made the edict from the federal government, but the governors are enforcing this, at least in some respects, forcing humans to stay 6 feet apart. Restaurants, beaches, parks, whatever, they're not allowing us to get close to one another. Is that having an effect on this?
Well, I mean, my general feeling about this whole thing is it's a plandemic. None of it is really authentic as far as any needs that we have to stay away from each other. In fact, it's actually harmful. I think we're going to lose our basic ability to build immunity here, which is insane. But let's turn it to a positive and just think in terms of the tourist fields for a second, because I think that's what Neil was getting at, is that it seems, sort of a coincidence that they want to keep us as far apart as we can create our tourist fields. So, what we can do as kind of like playing along with this, because there are some big things that are happening in the background. And I actually act as a reporter for Mike Barra, who I'll give a plug to, because he does a show every day called The Real Deal Report. And it's really worth tuning into. It's on the Mike Barra official page. And, we've been working with a lot of the understanding of what this is basically in terms of what we are, undergoing as far as a country particularly, but also worldwide. But with our good graces that we are learning from the Schumann is to say that we can create our tourist fields so that we can actually interact with people. And I'm going to throw this out there because this is actually a possibility and I participate in it. We can communicate with other people telepathically. And this occurs in alpha brainwave state. And if you can hold that thought, and there's the real key, is to say that you can bring your resonance down to alpha, which requires that you bring it down below 13 hertz, which is where beta takes over, right? 13 to 30.
Right.
So you're now functioning within that state of mind where there's no mind, there's no thought in your mind other than you're thinking about your torus field. And so you're not only looking at your own space 6 feet away from everybody else, but you're also saying to yourself, I want to communicate with that person. So then you put your thought, your great, strong, incredible electric brain into connection with your heart. And you can just take those thoughts and pass them right over to those other people as you want to interact with them. And then you can actually come together just in a method which walking towards each other is a better expression, but where you can actually intersect those little torus fields, and you'll actually feel that. You'll start to feel the other person's energy level.
Sure.
Now, this is something that a lot of people have never had to try before. There's been no incentive. So now we have an incentive. Let's use it, and let's make it a positive. And if everybody out there, every one of you tells 10 people, and 10 people tell another 10 people, and we get 100 and 1,000 and 1,000,000, that we're all working on the same basis. Do you know what we can do with that particular knowledge?
We can shift the average reality. We can shift the energy of the average reality.
Yes.
So let's...
and we also, in the same thought, let me finish it here, because the deep state does not function in a lower brainwave state than 13 hertz. They are only existing in that agitated state of beta. That's where they exist. That's where all of their thought processes, all of their electronic gear, everything that they have used against us. And as soon as we can remove that from their ability, we can defeat them without ever firing a shot. This is with our minds. That's how strong we are.
I agree with that. I think that the average reality is the mathematical sum of all the sentient beings in it. And right now there are about 7.8 billion of us alive on the planet at one time. Now, a lot of them are kids, yes, but those of us that are conscious, that we are conscious, we can affect this average reality. If you don't believe me, look at the effect that the deep state tried to have on the world. Yes, they took advantage of some ordinary flu, and they used a global media empire, and they flashed their message on all channels, all hours, with the coronavirus pandemic on the lower third. Everywhere you turned, it was coronavirus pandemic. They drilled it into our brains 24 hours a day for months. And look what it's done. It has done nothing. If anything, what has happened is the people have become disconnected from that state. We did not become subservient. We did not become dependent and more slave-like. It actually awakened our freedom. And the way that we're pushing, and you mentioned President Trump, I really have a tremendous amount of respect for President Trump, because he didn't have to do this. He could have stayed the rich billionaire, everybody's friend, writing checks and going to events and raising his beautiful kids and spending his life with his beautiful wife and traveling around to his beautiful properties all around the world. He didn't have to do this. He didn't have to do this at all. And he's been paid nothing to do it. Nothing. He's donated everything, including his life, to saving us and saving the world. And what has happened is, as the deep state, which is not President Trump, it's the other part of the government, when they began pushing us into this dark hole and making us stay separate from each other, making us stay home, making us quit our jobs or close our businesses, it did not have the effect they thought it was going to have. They thought they would drive us into fear. Oh, there are some people out there wearing their mask as a symbol of fear, but most of us don't. And most of us are not in that state of fear. And now you're beginning to see that great spirit of solidarity, that great American spirit of freedom. You're beginning to see it come out. And I think it's going to keep rising in power and resonance over the next few weeks, especially across the summer, don't you?
This is an incredible, exciting time. And all I can think is what a great opportunity for people to get out of their dead-end 9-to-5 jobs, their dilemmas that they've had to exist with because of the debt that they are under, the stress. All of that is dissolving around us. And so it's tasking us with basically going into our own abilities and deciding what it is that we want to do in the future. I can say for myself, this has been a tremendous opportunity to me personally to be able to discover synchronicity and synergy.
Sure.
Things that happen every day that I don't question anymore, because I have put these thought processes into the wavelengths that I think they belong. And I do meditate. I do spend a lot of time at night in theta, which is a very wonderful lucid dreaming state where you can basically, everybody does it every night. When you go to sleep, you go through your REM state of sleep before you go down into your delta state, which is the lowest category. That's deep sleep. So theta is a tremendously wonderful state to set intention. You lay your head down and you can visualize what you want to do in the future. And I'm just a living, breathing example that I'm sitting here talking to you. That I, who was a reporter for a lot of situations over the last 2 years that are pretty dark, and it's put me in a space where I've said, I don't think I need to do that anymore. I think I want to go into, the Schumann, where I can be a scientist and I can also be into, spirituality in a very real way, and to understand that is a really profound task that I have been given to explore and then to try to explain. so that my story, if you will, is very much honed on somebody who has created their own reality. And I think that once people empower themselves and understand this is such a great opportunity, that they will find that even if it's just running a greenhouse or, going out and, selling widgets or getting into a art or a music or something that really appeals to them, they can spend the rest of their lives doing quality things that they enjoy doing. And we are really changing the entire system.
Well, Festus
going to benefit everybody.
Festus in the chat room, he is a carpenter. He loves building things and working with wood, and that's his zen, he says. And I totally with that. I like working on cars, or this last couple of weeks I bought a new toolbox. 44 years I've had the old toolbox. So I've been taking all my tools and things out of the old toolbox and putting it in the new toolbox, and it's kind of a zen, it is. Especially with, a cold one sitting up on the bench of the new toolbox. It's pretty cool. And I've enjoyed it. And we kind of wrapped it up this weekend and actually rolled the new toolbox into place. So there is this state of bliss and purpose that we can get into. And, maybe you're right. A little forced downtime, I guess. I had to work from home this last week, and I thought I was going to go crazy the first couple of days, but now tomorrow I have to go back in the office, and I'm going, I don't want to. I'm sure a lot of people are that way, but this maybe gave us a chance to hit Control-Alt-Delete on ourselves and reboot ourselves, and we can come back with new purpose, and we're not going to be so easily frightened the second time around, I don't think.
That's exactly it. And, the computer analogy, I think, is so wonderful because all of us have to deal with in this world of computers, right? So one of the things that I understand, I happen to have a Linux system, okay? So I highly advise that you have Linux. Big plug for Linux here. Because it takes a little bit of work, you have to kind of integrate and learn how to do all that stuff. And so that it is a process of learning not only the hardware, the operating systems, but then all the, that software, the apps and everything else that goes with it. And it takes a little while, it's not something that happens overnight, but if we put this into process and everybody thinks of this as being looking forward, you can look all this all day long and look backwards, but let's turn this into a scenario that we all can live with,
sure.
That we all see together as our strengths. And if you like to do woodworking, you're going to be a woodworker, and you're going to spend all day in your woodworking shop, and you're going to work with the stuff that you like to work with, and you'll be paid handsomely for it. The money system is changing. The commerce is going to change. You talk about getting back to work. Well, a lot of us know that this isn't ever going to be the same as it was. It's going to be different. And I happen to have a job with the census right now. And it's pretty interesting because, of course, we have to go with federal regulations. So, we have been tasked with doing social media. And it's like, what? Me, social media? Okay, well, yeah, I can do that. So, I'm getting paid for it. I'm doing social media from home. What could be better? But this is a short-term job, so I have to think beyond that. What am I going to do? But, we're going to see a lot fall down over the next few months.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to be, to a lot of folks that have been waiting for this for 30 years, I mean, it's high times right now. Because we're seeing the end of the systems that have so corrupted us. And
I hope so. I know that they're holding us hostage, and that they're wanting trillions of dollars for their projects to push this country further towards socialism. But I don't think the country's ready to go that way. I really don't. I think the country would sooner just stay a republic. They would rather control their own destiny than be taken care of from cradle to grave by the government. That's just my feeling. I don't know very many people that that want to be socialists. Not yet. I don't think we're ready yet. I don't think we ever will be. I think if we ever do get to that point, it's a point of defeat, because the easy way into socialism is lazy, but to get out of socialism takes blood and horror, and I don't think we're ready for that. I think we would just as soon stay free, be able to go to the beach when we want to go to the beach, do what we want to do, learn what we want to learn, love who we want to love, and keep the government out of our lives.
Well, it is really the intent of most of us that are in the spiritual community, which is really a profound difference that I've seen. Of course, we all look back and we say, well, there was that New Age thing that happened back there. But what's really coming to the forefront now is much more of what, like I'm working with, which is science. And so science is changing too,
Sure.
Because it's the folks that are in the positivity that are going to be able to use it, and the rest of this is just going to fade away because there just is not enough money around anymore. And from my own side of things, where I've been working with, particularly child trafficking, which is just a horror that's existed right under our feet. Literally, it's been in the tunnels and even on the surface with, very, very horrid circumstance. And as that is defeated, which we have done in steps, it just isn't all at once, but we've closed down our southern border so there's not coyotes coming across. We've destroyed deep underground military bases. We've cleaned out the tunnel system. We've now shut down our northern border, which is quite pleasant to us up here in the north side of the country. And that's going to be temporary because, of course, we've got things that are going on in Canada. But we did sign an agreement, between in terms of commerce with Mexico and with Canada and the U.S. And I see this as something that is really positive, and it is what the plan has been all along, which, of course, Q always says, that we
trust the plan, he always says. Trust the plan.
The government, yes, trust the plan, and that we want the governments to be local. We don't need a big bloated federal government that basically is, it takes our money and then redistributes it and puts, 2/3 of it in their pocket. That model has not worked for as long as I've lived. And so we're going to see that people will pick up on that, start talking to their neighbors and start really doing things around, in their communities and in their counties. And I just want to reassure everybody that this count for the census is of primary importance.
Sure.
Because it is important that we understand who's still alive and who isn't, so we can equal things out in terms of our voter rolls. We can actually have a say-so in terms of the governance in our states, and that basically we have more sovereignty, which I want everybody to look at that word at least every day, because sovereignty is about each of us participating in our own lives.
And not letting someone else do our lives for us.
That's exactly it. So,
you said something
out,
before we end. You sent me something in writing, and I thought it was profound, and I just wanted to get it out there. You said that we need to tune ourselves to the frequency of the earth, come together to stabilize the world grid. It is what we must do right now to help and shift the consciousness of the world to achieve and create the resonance that will activate and stabilize our emotions and the emotions of the hue, me, nions everywhere. Thank you, and yes, the best is yet to come. I teach a class on how to put yourself out in the future and look back at things, that they're never as bad or as good as we think they're going to be. And it allows us to not just see the beginning of the path, but see the end of the path, or at least further down toward the middle of the path, and look back toward the beginning and find our way. When I went out to the end of this whole thing, after this whole pandemic thing is over with, looking back on it, there were some good things about it because we learned a lot about ourselves. And if it wasn't for President Trump sending that money out to help people bridge that short period of time, and there may be another infusion. Personally, as a large employer, we don't like it because we have a 22% absenteeism right now. People can lay out because they have some days saved up, so they just lay out because they're getting paid by the government. So it's hurting us. We're not able to produce what we want to produce because people are not coming to work. And every business owner I know is going through that right now. But that will soon end, and we will get back to work. And it's not going to be, as Candace says, not going to be like it was. We're more awake now. We're more aware. And I think we're going to begin to apply our sovereignty in a way I don't think the government is going to be able to do what they actually planned on doing. That's what I see from the future. What do you see?
Well, this is the great awakening, and this is something that does extend to every one of the cabal's programs that they had of control over us. And it's really the magic that is going on behind the scenes, and it has God's hand, so it's not all black magic. But they've really taken extra efforts to make it all something that we didn't understand. And I look at these industries as far as what we're dealing with right now, and I have nothing but hope that they will be rebuilt in a kind of more humanoid, completely honest way. You know, you look at big pharma where they've got the vaccines and all those the medicines that they use to treat symptoms, but that nobody's healing anybody.
Yeah.
And this is going to shift because more and more people are learning that, you know, and there are a lot of frequency machines out there that they've already made, you know, that people could get into as far as a device, and that you know about this, Brooks, because you've worked in this field. But the ideal that we will then move into, which is not only that it's natural and we don't need all these chemicals in our body, but as we learn to deal with it ourselves, as I did in my years of martial arts training with the Shaolin, is that we can actually heal ourselves.
Sure, we are the cure. We are the cure. We always have been. We walk around in a fog of microbes and viruses that would have wiped us out millions of years ago. We are the cure. You don't need no stinking vaccine.
Exactly. And you certainly don't need anybody making so much money it's obscene. I think that one of our biggest shocks is going to come when we realize that actually we're very close to being able to not only pay off the national debt, but that as the currency is reset, that it's all going to give us, you know, the Nasara, the Gasara, a lot of theories behind this. But
Lots of theories. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. 3 minutes. Don't go away. We'll be back at the top of the hour.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like Beyond the Veil with Chris and Cherie Geo, X Squared with Brooks Agnew, Paranormal Portal with Brent Thomas, Sharonism Raw with Sharon and Nissa, Fearless with Frank Castle, Strange World with Mark Sargent, The Eye of Ra with Ra Castaldo, The Infinite Fringe with Billy Ray, Ironworks with Josh Corey, The Kev Baker Show, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
Take it slow and safely. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News. States are starting to reopen beaches and more public spaces just in time for the summer, but health officials are warning about the dangers of doing it too quickly.
When you take a look at the situation in a number of different states that began to reopen their economies early, it does seem to be at this point so far still a mixed bag. Here in Georgia, which was one of the most aggressive states to reopen, there's been no spike in new virus cases. However, in Texas, which reopened 3 weeks ago, there has been a spike in new cases, the highest single-day total of new cases since the pandemic began, 1,801 in Texas. Now, Texas officials say the reason is because of more testing. And a number of governors say to truly open the economies effectively, we've got to get children back in school in the fall.
Fox's Steve Harrigan. As it reopens region by region, New York focusing on providing testing for the coronavirus.
Now we have more testing capacity and more sites than we're actually using. We have drive-in sites that can do 15,000 per day. We're doing about 5,000 per day.
Governor Andrew Cuomo actually was tested for the virus at today's briefing, and he urged people with symptoms to get a test. The Trump administration is trying to do what's never been done before, develop a vaccine for COVID-19 by the end of the year. Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar explains.
We had 100 candidates originally. We've narrowed it to 14, and we're going to keep narrowing that down to maybe 4, 5, 6 that we really place the big financial bets behind and drive on. And we might actually have multiple vaccines, some appropriate for different populations and different settings as we see the data get generated here.
On CBS Face the Nation, Azar says the goal is to have 300 million doses of vaccine by January. America is listening to Fox News.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Interesting comments going on during the break. Sorry, we couldn't include the world in it, but you have to be on YouTube Live to see this chat room going. It is flying. I totally agree with the people in the chat room, Candace also included, that we are in the majority. You know, we often talk about the mainstream news. They're not the mainstream news anymore. They're the fake stream news. They may have more listeners, they may have a bigger budget, they may have a bigger building and more news actors, but we are now the mainstream news. Why do I say that? Because the mainstream is us. We're the ones that are out of work. We're the ones that have been displaced by the cabal, which is manipulating all of the press and trying to make us fear a simple flu. 187 countries are cowering. I was speaking to a friend of mine in Argentina today. They're not allowed to travel 20 blocks. 20 blocks. Their entire city of Buenos Aires is totally shut down. 187 countries are absolutely crushed with this global force. Now, I often ask myself, what kind of power can crush an entire planet like that with an ordinary illness, something that the average 99% of the average people can just fight it off, and some of us have no symptoms at all. Most of us have already had it, and we have the antibodies in our system. What kind of power does it take to turn a simple flu into a world-crushing economic juggernaut that just smashes economies all over the world and drives everyone into extreme poverty? It takes a tremendous power. It takes a power that the people never even estimated existed. Some person, some entity of great darkness and great power on this planet commanded all of that. It wasn't just a group in a think tank somewhere. This was organized. And later on tonight, I'm going to share with you a speech that was made by a Chinese general. It was translated into English by Epoch Times. And you're going to see exactly what this is. However, we're not just talking about a virus. We're not just talking about economy. We're talking about a human race. A human race. And the human race operates on energy. Yes, we have to have food and water and, a place to sleep and all that, but we are energetic beings. And what we've been talking about for the last couple of hours on the program is the human energy and the earth energy. Now, the question was raised in the chat room during the last segment. When do you think the earth is going to get to that 13 hertz level on the Schumann resonance and begin to really synchronize the human race?
Well, that's a really good question. We have seen it really change upwards of 2 hertz within the last 20 years. Now, I think we've got things that are accelerating way more rapidly right now. And if I could make a prediction that we've got a major event that will happen in November, and that's the re-election of Donald Trump. And in that next term, there's going to be some things come to the forward that has been suppressed as long as, again, the last 100 years. And one of the big things is, of course, the medical technology. We're all going to have a chance to live a lot longer. We're all going to have a chance to be healthy within our minds and our bodies. We're going to have a chance to live in a culture that highlights the clean food. We're going to get rid of the GMO product. We're going to get rid of the chemicals. We're going to have just a better scenario overall to be healthy, to be happy, to be in a situation where we are in charge of our own bodies, minds, and spirits.
Sure.
Now, we're not going to do this alone. We're going to do this with God, who is at our side, with Jesus Christ, who I really try to prevail on people and to give ministry every day, that right now we cannot choose any other, because what the choice is what the deep state, and this is coming out right now, this is going to be huge for people to try to understand, but they have used Satan and his minions, Lucifer and the whole host of demons, and they are the ones that have controlled us in this manner. And if you can see it for that, and then you can rise above it and say, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm not going to be a part of this music scene where they have, satanic symbols all over the place. Even places like Washington, D.C., we're going to have to create a new capital. We're going to have to move new people into position that are willing to take on this responsibility and to go forward with the new day.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, in the chat room, they're really responding with what you're saying. We've had 2 $10 Top Chat contributions. Moverling 5 is has put $10 in, and Boo has put $10 in. That is good. And you know what I usually do with this money when it's accumulated, when there's a guest on, is I match all the contributions that come in during that segment, and then I'll send you the money through Facebook. So you'll get remunerated for this. That's just
it's a good point, Brooks, to bring up, because I work with some of the best people in the country right now, and I understand that this is a service. You know, that basically we all are working at the, you know, if I balance my checkbook every month, I'm lucky, but, you know, that we've been called to this service. This is something that, you know, I go back on, and we could talk about this for hours, but a lot of us have been around the wheel of, you know, of karma many, many times.
Sure.
And certainly are in a position now where we're kind of approaching the
and David Caldwell,
our final incarnation.
And David Caldwell, $10, and it says he'll match Moverling and Boo, and Jeremiah just put $10 in. So we're doing very well, Candace. You're gonna be fine.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
The work that, you know, people say, do you ever write a redress to Congress? You know, 70% of Congress is corrupt. And, you know, we have, in the business that we're in, tried to get government grants before. We hired lobbyists, and lobbyists comes to our building and says, well, probably what you need to do is make a political contribution. So my CFO at the time said, well, it kind of makes me angry in 2 ways. I don't know if I should be angry that we have to give the money in order to get a conversation with our congressman, or I should be angry that if we do give the money, we will get the sit down. You know, it's like, this is the way the system works. And we are generous beings. We give freely to one another to help others in need. That is the soul of capitalism. That is the soul of capitalism. You see a need in other people and you fill that need. That's the soul of capitalism. And that's what you're doing. These contributions that are flowing in right now, that I'm going to send to you when the program's over through Facebook. This is beings reaching out to another being. They see a need in someone else and they fill that need. And that is the core of the American way. That's what we do. And that's why I call this America Free Radio, because we have the best listeners on the planet. And they really appreciate what you've said tonight.
Well, this is really profoundly wonderful for me. I am sort of in a position where this is a very important process, and I've been giving counsel to people for years about this change that we are coming into. And I've had to ask, because in my martial art, it wasn't information that was freely given at first. It was something that we had to achieve rank, and we had to achieve understanding within the context of the teachings. So one of the things that, of course, has come to me recently, and it's really a gift, is that I have been able to be more outgoing with my information, and the Schumann Resonance has really been a wonderful format for teaching. Part of what I really enjoy doing is addressing people's issues, which I try to answer questions. And so I'll go in and look at all the comments and put little hearts underneath it. But I also will, I take seriously every person's level that they're at. There is no level that's above any other level, that we are all working this out together.
Sure.
this information flow that we're creating is so beautiful, and you know, it's just really profound that I've known you for quite a while, but we've never, you know, met formally. But then I've always thought, you know, if there was one person out there that would understand what I was like trying to say, it would be you know, because not everybody really can comprehend all of this all at once. It's a lot of information, but it's lifetimes of information for me. And I draw a lot from my analysis on the Schumann. Sometimes it drops in front of me and I go, well, where did that come from? And, you know, it's God speaking through me, which is really the instance of a lot of the great speakers that are out there right now that are conveying information, is that they don't have to write down notes, that they can speak extemporaneously about their wellspring of information that has come to them. And then they can make a point and they get a huge following. There's quite a few people out there that are participating in it like that. And I never thought of myself as being capable of that. But then again, I've had recently a couple people say that, you know, I should start speaking. And so this is a great format for me. I'm going to be working and speaking on Mike Barra's program this next week. And I do have an open invitation to speak with Laura Eisenhower, who I know, who lives close to me here.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, you tell Mike you were on. You would tell Mike you were on my program, and he and I have been friends for a long time. By the way, Boo says in the chat room, when I started listening to the program, I had no idea how many insights you would reveal. Thank you so much. That comes from Boo, and she contributed tonight. And David says, if I had $10,000 to spare, I'd send it. So, and Moverling 5 just put another $50 in there. So this is doing very nicely.
Fantastic.
We have a live caller. Let me go ahead and bring the live caller on. And let's see. Hang on a second. Nope, the live caller disappeared. See, sometimes they call in the wrong line and they just hang out and listen. So don't forget, everyone, her Candace Whitelight's Facebook page is Frequency of the Earth. It is a group in Facebook. You should join that group. Everything that we've talked about tonight is posted along there. She posts a lot of good information there, and it's pretty current, the stuff we've been talking about tonight. I put a link to tonight's program in the comments on that as well. And she's going to be on Mike Barra. She's going to be on Laura Eisenhower. Candace is going to be everywhere. And when the lecture circuit starts back up again, we hope to see you out there on the stage, pontificating with your knowledge.
Oh, thank you. That's I had thought about this for the last 2 years. I've been at the Psychic Sasquatch Fair, which is really a phenomenal event. And, I had a booth and went to the speakers and got to know everybody there. And believe me, that's a great cast of characters too. But I had in my mind, I was going to be able to speak at that event, which to me would be pretty fantastic because it's a wide range of people, but it is about a science, which is the Sasquatch, but it's also about energy. And whenever we're talking about the Schumann, we're talking about the power, we're talking about the ability that we all have to learn this together so that we can make a better world.
Sure, that's what it's all about. By the way, Franz Glaus, who's a listener in another country, has also sent $10, and then Jeremiah sends $10 and said, this is from Rob. Rob Plonick is also in the chat room. He doesn't have a card, so Jeremiah is contributing on his behalf. So we'll total all this up, and we'll put it in a care package, and we'll send it to you on your Facebook Messenger directly. And that way they won't take a fee out of it. It's yours to help you with your support. So I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight.
Okay, I just wanted to say Franz is a friend of mine. Actually, he lives in Montana as well. And he has a great Facebook group called Fight the Freaks.
Oh.
And you got to go there, and you got to be a member of his, because he has a great, great media idea that he has coming down the pike. And these are good folks. They're all,
nice.
Based in sound logic and reason, and a wonderful sense of themselves. So it's been great.
Yeah, fantastic. So a couple of other people want to donate. They're asking. I have a couple of moderators out there who will tell them what to do. I super appreciate you coming on the program tonight, and you're welcome back anytime. And send me more information as you get it, especially if you have any kind of breaking news when it comes to this kind of energy, because I know these kinds of things. I have a friend that posts stuff on the Schumann Resonance all the time. I don't know if he really knows what he's doing or how to interpret it, but he finds it really cool. But you've been studying it for a long time, and you have good insights, and as is evident from the chat room, they're resonating with it as well. So we really appreciate you coming on the program.
Well, I'd like to come back in another, month or whatever, and really kind of a more thoroughly explain some of the subtle waves that I've worked with, because the thing that we're learning is not only to really grasp the concept of the flow state, which is alpha brainwave state, but also to understand how we can move our minds over or leap over or move through beta and then become into the higher consciousness, which is in gamma. So that's kind of part of this 5D shift thing, and I'll probably be talking with Laura about that more extensively, but that's a process. That's going to take a while.
Oh yeah, it's like grabbing a moving train.
We're kind of,
Yeah, that's like grabbing a moving train. Our conscious mind operates at a much slower baud rate than our subconscious. And a lot of people think when you go into meditation, what you're doing is blanking the mind out, but that's not exactly what's happening. What you're doing is you're syncing your conscious mind with your subconscious mind. And it's actually an acceleration of your conscious mind. And it's a little like grabbing a moving train at first. But once you get used to it, once you get used to that higher energy state and that higher awareness, you can really, really cover a lot of space and time.
Yeah, and use your, dream state, the theta, because that's where your flow state line is. I just put an article up on Frequency of the Earth. Lots of resources there, lots of people to talk to. We have mentors in case you just are starting out that are fantastic. Skip Thomas and my friend, good friend, Richard Wilkins. They're both able to instruct people and to really think of this as a prayerful state as well. One of the things we always said in Shaolin, which we again talk about these days, is where we go one, we go all, and that's what it is, the flow state. And that's where we are, and that's where we're going to be.
That's exactly right. And it's not just America first. I mean, it is America first, but it's all humans. When we talk about we go one, we go all, it's a very, very powerful feeling, and it's a powerful energy. And by the way, Moverling5 gave $10 on behalf of Sherry while she's trying to figure out how to contribute. So, well, the rest of the show, we have another 40 minutes to go, but I got some more information I need to share tonight. And I super appreciate you coming on, and we'll do an accounting of all this and get it to you tonight. I'll be on Discord after the program. If you want to come over on Discord, we can continue the conversation with a bunch of our friends. And while I'm posting notes and things like that, we can keep it going. Anyway.
I will talk to you soon. And thank you again. And namaste to all those that are here tonight, and many blessings and prayers.
Namaste. Thank you so much. Have a very, very pleasant week.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Candace Whitelight. Super cool to have her on the program. I really, really appreciate the warm welcome you all gave to her. That really means a lot to me. I appreciate that so much. You just don't know what that means to me. We have about 5 minutes left in this half hour. I did want to get this out there because it's important. This section's for Seth Rich. A lawyer for one of the individuals caught up in the controversy over the unsolved murder of Seth Rich in 2016 is asking acting director of national intelligence, and this guy I think is a rock star superhero, Richard Grenell. Okay, how about Richard Grenell making this public list of all the individuals that unmasked General Mike Flynn? He has done an absolutely phenomenal job. Anyway, he is been asked to declassify the federal records in the Seth Rich murder case. Ty Clevenger made the request in a letter on behalf of client Ed Butowski after Grenell pushed the House Intelligence Committee to release 57 transcripts of testimony in the panel's Russia collusion investigation. I think more than anything else, this has blown the cabal apart. I look to see Adam Schiff resigning, maybe Nancy Pelosi resigning, maybe Nadlis resigning. You're going to see some really big shakeups over this. But the reason I bring this story up tonight is because Butowski dared to ask questions no one in Washington wanted asked, let alone answered. He's a high-profile author. He's a financial advisor involved in several legal actions claiming it was Seth Rich, not Russian hackers, who purloined data from the DNC during the 2016 presidential campaign and turned it over to WikiLeaks. Now, Clevenger's letter notes the 2016 murder of Rich in Washington near his home and the fact that it is still unsolved. In fact, the surveillance tapes that were at Lou's City Bar, and by the way, if you've read the book Charm of Favor, I put you on the ground in the bar on the night Seth Rich was murdered. The surveillance tapes were never even watched. Never even watched. Butowski's lawsuits concern whether former Democrat National Committee employee Seth Rich played a role in leaking emails from the DNC to WikiLeaks. He says, I am reliably informed that the NSA or its partners intercepted at least some of the communications between Mr. Rich and WikiLeaks. Last September, Judicial Watch inadvertently obtained records about Seth Rich by requesting communications between FBI lawyer Lisa Page and supervisory agent Peter Strzok. Now, why in the world would Seth Rich's name be in those records? He's just a lowly DNC staffer. He wasn't even running for office. He hadn't even been there that long. He was a Bernie boy. The header in the heavily redacted email string is Seth Rich. And in one email, Agent Strzok boasts about having squashed something pertaining to Mr. Rich. Really? Further, Clevenger explained he deposed Assistant U.S. Attorney Deborah Sines, the prosecutor in the Rich murder case. He deposed her. He put her under oath and made her answer questions. She said the FBI investigated possible intrusion of Rich's electronic accounts. The Bureau examined Rich's computer, and the FBI did have records pertaining to Rich. Clevenger also said famed journalist Seymour Hersh reported a high-ranking FBI official said communications between Rich and WikiLeaks do exist. Clevenger charged that high-level officials have pursued extraordinary lengths to keep the Russia collusion hoax alive, and that extends to the false narrative that Russian agents were responsible for hacking the DNC. By the way, shortly after this came out, 6 Russian diplomats plus Ambassador Kislyak were killed. Dead men tell no tales. It was the conclusion of Special Counsel Robert Mueller. Hey, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. There's more to come with X Squared Radio.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular system, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraines, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? Life is a 99% pure CBD oil made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ialife.com now. That's AYA-life.com.
Your home has needs. It needs a healthy, dry environment all year round. Start by getting rid of the worst air in the basement and crawl space, where the problems begin and make the whole house sick. Introducing the new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. It has advanced technologies to continuously reduce moisture, mold, and odors, and expel radon, gases, and pollutants. And now, Wave units include carbon monoxide detection to automatically expel air at a high rate and send you an alert. It also has an app so you can remotely monitor the conditions. Wave is a comprehensive, maintenance-free, affordable solution that will transform your entire home. Protect your home and family with what it needs. Give it a new Smart Wave Ventilation Unit. For more information, call 888-717-WAVE. That's 888-717-WAVE. Or go to dryhealthyhome.com. That's dryhealthyhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing for buried treasure and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment, I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Thank you so much for being part of America Free Radio tonight. It is such a pleasure to have all of you out there listening. And the thousands of you that will listen to this YouTube over the next week or two, know that my heart is with you, that I wouldn't be here without you. It's been 15 years behind this microphone. We've been telling the truth, revealing things, connecting the dots for a long time. And there are a lot of podcasters that are doing a great job out there, but you're here tonight with me, and it means a lot to me. You know, about a decade ago, I said that universities were losing their franchise on higher education. The internet was changing the way people learn things. Vimeo, YouTube. They have virtually every single graduate level class online for free. Granted, even at that pace, much of it is already obsolete. The most current free educational material is at best 2 years old, but that still is years ahead of even the most current college professors. Colleges and universities are scrambling to figure out what to do next year if students can't come back to campus. Half the schools have pushed back their May 1st deadlines for accepting seats. What do you expect to happen over the next month? There's a recognition that education, the value, the price, the product, it has fundamentally shifted. The value of education has been substantially degraded. There's the education certificate, and then there's the experience part of college. The experience part of it is down to 0, and the education part has been dramatically reduced. You get a degree that over time will be reduced in value as we realize it's not the same to be a graduate of a liberal arts college if you never went to campus. You can see already how students and their parents are responding. At universities, we're having constant meetings, and we've all adopted this narrative of this unprecedented and we're in this together. We're not lowering our prices, bitches, they said. We're going to maintain these prices for what has become overnight a dramatically less compelling product offering. What is worse is that the tuition bill has gotten outrageous, and that now people are going to be just staring at a computer screen. The industry needs skilled people. We need skilled people. They traditionally have thought that this comes from degreed people, but that is collapsing as we speak. A degree in women's transgender studies no longer qualifies you to do much of anything. Even though a woman with a degree in social work is running California's Department of Health, the weakness in those poor choices are costing employers billions and billions of dollars a month. The way to fix it is to be freed up to choose people with skills rather than with sheepskins from one school or another. As usual, bureaucracies stand in the way. Insurance companies and states offer discounts and tax credits only if the new hire has a college degree. We're running into that very same thing with engineers. Homeschooled students need not apply. I foresee this last barrier falling soon. If for nothing else, Operation Corona Scare offers hope to the self-educated genius over the college degreed idiot. Trust me, I have several degrees, and they never taught me the skills that are making me a good living or allowed me to solve high-level problems. So now I want to share with you something that you probably have not heard before. In fact, I know you haven't heard it before. You've heard rumors, you've heard conspiracies, you've heard theories, you've had all kinds of pontification in different websites, but you haven't heard this. In the midst of their constant lecturing to the world that globalism must occur and it must be done their way, the Chinese communists intentionally spread a bio-warfare virus to the world to demonstrate the point. Brilliant. Yet so many still kowtow to these whose face should be lost down the storm drain to drift to the sewerage treatment plant. Many of us by now understand the despotic regime of China, and that they are at war with the U.S. And the CCP virus may be only one phase of it. More to come. And COVID-19 is not the first wave of their war crime atrocities. They have been dumping the pandemonium of fentanyl into America by probably the murderous ton, shipping containers load, enough to kill every man, woman, and child in the country. They've caused tens of thousands of deaths in addition to widespread debilitation. Early in his administration, President Trump raised a fervor and a furor, calling some nations of the world shitholes. Yeah? He and we need to understand very clearly that China is led from a hellhole. China intentionally spread the CCP virus through the world. It's something we must now take as obviously demonstrated by their continuing to foster travel from Wuhan province to other nations during the COVID-19's rise, even while banning such travel within their own country. Do you think this truth is chilling? Do you think that I'm being deceptive or alarmist in any way? Well, let me share with you something you have never heard before. I'm going to share with you a translated speech from their own general. This is the core of the Chinese government speaking, not some obscure radical. This is a 1992 speech by General Qi. The Chinese Communist Party's intention is to militarily defeat, occupy, and colonize the United States. This plan has been confirmed by a Russian defector source who worked in China and had information about a joint Sino-Russian plan to invade North America. The plan was drawn up in 1992 after the fall of the Soviet Union. The division of spoils was described thus: Russia would get Alaska and parts of Canada. China would get the lower 48 states, with other countries invited in for looting rights. As we all know, Nazi Germany also placed much emphasis on the education of the people, especially the younger generation. The Nazi Party and government organized and established various propaganda and educational institutions, such as the Guiding Bureau of National Propaganda. Back then, the German people were much more united than they are today. Nonetheless, Germany was defeated in utter shame, along with its ally, Japan. Why? We reached some conclusions at the study meetings of the Politburo in which we were searching for the laws that govern the vicissitudes of the big powers and trying to analyze Germany and Japan's rapid growth. When we decide to revitalize based on the German model, we must not repeat the mistakes they made. Specifically, the following are the fundamental causes for their defeat. First, they had too many enemies all at once, as they did not adhere to the principles of eliminating enemies one at a time. And second, they were too impetuous, lacking the patience and perseverance required for great accomplishments. And third, when the time came for them to be ruthless, they turned out to be too soft, therefore leaving troubles that resurfaced later on. Now let's presume that back then Germany and Japan had been able to keep the United States neutral and had fought a protracted war step by step on the Soviet front. If they had adopted this approach, gained some time to advance their research, eventually succeeded in obtaining the technology of nuclear weapons and missiles, and launched surprise attacks against the United States and the Soviet Union using them, then the United States and the Soviet Union would not have been able to defend themselves and would have had to surrender. Little Japan, in particular, made an egregious mistake in launching the sneak attack on Pearl Harbor. This attack did not hit the vital parts of the United States. Instead, it dragged the United States into the war, into the ranks of the gravediggers that eventually buried the German and Japanese fascists. The reason that the United States remains today is that it has never seen war on its mainland. Once its enemies aim at the mainland, these enemies would reach Washington before its Congress finishes debating and authorizes the president to declare war. But for us, we don't waste time on these trivial things. Comrade Deng Xiaoping once said, "The party's leadership is prompt in making decisions. Once a decision is made, it is immediately implemented. There's no wasting time on trivial things like in capitalist countries." When China made the decision to attack America within hours of the trade treaty being signed with President Trump, it took less than 21 days to crush the world's greatest economy. The bottom line is only China is a reliable force in resisting the Western parliament-based democratic system. Hitler's dictatorship in Germany was perhaps but a momentary mistake in history. One time, some Americans came to visit and tried to convince us that the relationship between China and the United States is one of interdependence. Comrade Xiaoping replied in a polite manner, "Go tell your government, China and the United States do not have such a relationship that is interdependent and mutually reliant." Actually, Comrade Xiaoping was being too polite. He could have been more frank. The relationship between China and the United States is one of life and death struggle. Of course, right now is not the time to openly break up with them yet. Our reform and opening to the outside world rely on their capital and technology, and we still need America. Therefore, we must do everything we can to promote our relationship with America, learn from America in all aspects, and use America as an example to reconstruct our country. How have we managed our foreign affairs in these years? Even if we had to put on a smiling face in order to please them, even if we have to give them the right cheek after they have hit our left cheek, we still must endure in order to further our relationship with the United States. Do you remember the character of Wu Xun in the movie The Story of Wu Xun? In order to accomplish his mission, he endured so much pain and suffered so much beating and kicking. The United States is the most successful country in the world today. Only after we have learned all of its useful experiences can we replace it in the future. Even though we are presently imitating the Americans' tone, China and the United States rely on each other and share honor and disgrace. We must not forget that the history of our civilization repeatedly has taught us that one mountain does not allow two tigers to live together. We must also never forget what Comrade Xiaoping emphasized. Refrain from revealing ambitions and put others off the track. Conventional weapons such as fighters, cannons, missiles, and battleships won't do. Neither will highly destructive weapons such as nuclear weapons. We are not as foolish as to want to perish together with America by using nuclear weapons, despite the fact that we have been exclaiming that we still have the Taiwan issue resolved at whatever cost. Only by using non-destructive weapons that can kill many people will we be able to reserve America for ourselves. There has been rapid development of modern biological technology, and new bioweapons have been invented one after the other. Of course, we have not been idle. In the past years, we have seized the opportunity to master weapons of this kind. We are capable of achieving our purpose of cleaning up America all of a sudden. Biological weapons are unprecedented in their ruthlessness. But if the Americans do not die, then the Chinese have to die. If the Chinese people are strapped to the present land, a total societal collapse is bound to take place. According to the computation of the author of Yellow Peril, more than half of the Chinese people will die, and that figure would be more than 800 million people. just after the liberation, our yellow land supported nearly 500 million people, while today the official figure of the population is more than 1.3 billion. This yellow land has reached the limit of its capacity. One day, who knows how soon it will come, the great collapse will occur any time, and more than half the population will have to go. We must prepare ourselves for two scenarios. If our biological weapons succeed in the surprise attack, the Chinese people will be able to keep their losses at a minimum in the fight against the United States. If, however, the attack fails and triggers a nuclear retaliation from the United States, China would perhaps suffer a catastrophe in which more than half of its population would perish. That is why we need to be ready with air defense systems for our big and medium-sized cities. Whatever the case may be, we can only move forward fearlessly for the sake of our party and state and our nation's future, regardless of the hardships we have to face and the sacrifices we have to make. The population, even if more than half dies, can be reproduced. But if the party fails, everything is gone and forever gone. Bioweapons that target specific genetics have not reached the stage of actual deployment. We have cooperated with Israel on some research. Perhaps we can introduce some of the technologies used to protect Israelis and remold these technologies to protect the yellow people. But their technologies are not mature yet, and it is difficult for us to surpass them in a few years. If it has to be 5 or 10 years before some breakthrough can be achieved in genetic weapons, we cannot afford to wait any longer. The party must give up its expectations about genetic weapons. Of course, from another perspective, the majority of those Chinese living in the United States have become our burden, because they have been corrupted by the bourgeoisie liberal values for a long time, and it will be difficult for them to accept our party's leadership. If they survive the war, we would have to launch campaigns in the future to deal with them, to reform them. Maybe we could put it this way: death is the engine that moves history forward. It is indeed brutal to kill 100 or 200 million Americans, but that is the only path that will secure a Chinese century in which the CCP leads the world. We, as revolutionary humanitarians, do not want deaths, but if history confronts us with a choice between deaths of the Chinese and those of Americans, we'd have to pick the latter. As for us, it is more important to safeguard the lives of the Chinese people and the life of our party. That is because, after all, we are Chinese and members of the CCP. Since the day we joined the CCP, the party, life has always been above all else. History will prove that we made the right choice. Currently, we are at the crossroad of moving forward or backward. Some comrades saw problems flooding everywhere in our country: the corruption problem, the state-owned enterprise problem, the bank's bad accounts problem, environmental problems, Social Security problems, education problems, the AIDS problem, various appeals problems, and even the riots problem. These comrades vacillated in determination to prepare for military battles. They thought they should first grab the political reform problem. That is, our own political reform comes first. After resolving the domestic problems, we can then deal with the foreign military battle problem. As long as we resolve the United States problem at one blow, our domestic problems will all be readily solved. Marxism pointed out that violence is the midwife for the birth of China's century. As war approaches, I am full of hope for our next generation. I just wanted to let you know that that is out there. That speech was made. It is real. Trump's COVID-19 task force knew full well by early March of the likelihood of great harm to our elderly in nursing homes nationwide due to the Washington state catastrophe. But did they focus on that red light critical matter? No, they did not. The Obama holdovers in the White House think it is not such a bad idea to kill off the old folks. Remember what Obama said while selling Obamacare in 2009? Give grandma a pain pill and let that be it. Why has this White House team not been focused on quarantining the vulnerable rather than all the rest of us that need to make money to pay for their care? I have a lot of feelings about this. I just think that the suppression of the cure, there are now two of them. We have the hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and the Z-Pak. And there is another antibody, a direct antibody infusion that is just been released. It is an absolute 100% positive cure with no side effects whatsoever. It will cure you in 3 to 4 days. Within hours, you will begin to feel relief. And once you have the antibody, you are immune for life. And the antibody is now being manufactured as fast as they can make it. You'll hear about it in the next few days. I'm not going to give you the name of the company. Not yet. I want to talk a little bit about gravity waves on Earth. Rippling gravity waves in the sky usually are invisible, but recently a satellite caught a rare glimpse of the phenomenon on the coast of northwestern Australia. I have the images in my notes, which you can always access by going to tfrlive.com/X2 Radio, and the archives will be posted there. I may post that archive site on the X Squared Radio. It's on the X Squared Radio site too, so you can go there and just click on the program notes, click 2020, click today's date, and the notes will be up there right after the program. And I'll also be on Discord after the program. I just want to let you know that we haven't forgotten Seth Rich. We're going to stay on this story, keep you abreast of that. And remember, as you hear the news, as things begin to reopen, you're going to hear all kinds of horror stories. None of them are true. All roads, all virus roads lead to socialism. So use your brain out there, okay? You know what's going on. And where I think we're probably somewhere between 45 and 50% immune now. People have already had the disease, and they're already through it. This push to protect the super wealthy and let the middle class and the poor take the brunt of this, it just doesn't sit well with me. You can always follow me on all social media. It's all the same. Brooks Agnew everywhere. If you follow me on social media, it will treat, cure, and prevent the disease of ignorance. We are live here on YouTube every Wednesday night and every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And I very, very rarely run a rebroadcast or a pre-recorded show. It's all live. We have about 1 minute left in the program. I want to let you know how much I love you, how much I care for you. That's what brings me to this microphone every single week for 15 years. Don't forget, go to Amazon, check out my books. Hopefully, public speaking will begin again in a few months. It was canceled for the whole year of 2020. We didn't get to speak anywhere except New Jersey, and we had a great time up there. So hopefully that will break loose, and we'll see you next week right here on X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, saying peace, Earth Explorers. Now go and look for the good in others and help it to grow a little bit every day, and before long, you will have saved the planet.